Hello, everybody, and welcome to this webinar about winning sales is about interaction. My name is Paulus Perkkio. I'm CEO in Seidat and founder of the company. And I'm here together with one of the most successful Finnish sales influencers. Welcome, Sani.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here. Really, we have been discussing a lot, but we found kind of the topic by accident, and now it's great to dive into sales interactions.
Yeah, because how we see the sales interaction is one of the most important things in sales. If you think about how to get better results. And today's agenda, we will go through shortly how the sales will change in this year. We will discuss about trust and building trust. We are discussing quite a lot about interaction because it's the main topic of today. And then, of course, how to add value to customers. Do you want to summarize something?
No, it's. I think that as you mentioned, we're hopefully not going to dive in only digital and technology first, because sometimes, as you can see, there's lots of benefits. We can basically connect with these digital platforms all across the globe, but that doesn't necessarily mean that the essential skills in sales have changed. So basically, the interaction is still the whole beef here.
Yeah. And we are recording the whole webinar. So if you have any problems, we have technical problems, then you will get a recording in a couple of days, and that you can share to your colleagues. And we have chat all the time open, so please use that for asking questions, and in some cases maybe we turn microphones on.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and me also helped. If you want to try from the settings still, but anyways, I think that we could probably get going. There's lots of cool people already in, and I could perhaps showcase, let's say, have a small rant in the beginning, and then let's focus on the topic. So let me share the screen.
Yes.
And let's see where we're at. And the typical question now, obviously, is can everyone see the screen?
At least I can see
it. Nowadays, you always start with this kind of technical ensurement. So very briefly about my background. The last 14 years, I've been in B2B sales in different roles. I was also creating the world's first diploma in professional and digital and social selling, and also written or co-authored 2 books, one about customer experience and one about B2B selling. So what I want to do is I want to help companies to sell better in the, let's say, way that 2022 needs salespeople to act. And that brings me into the, let's say, the starting rant. So I thought that it would be a good idea to just like have a small overview. What are the customers expecting? Where are we headed? Where are we at? So basically, the first let's say, agenda was like, how will sales change in 2020? You could also say that how should sales change in 2022, right?
So, or we can ask, should it change?
Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, should it even change? Yeah. So basically, like, if we first start with what are people expecting? First of all, this is pre-COVID already. So people want, let's say, the customers are expecting vendors to personalize the engagement. So it's not to talk only about general topics, but personalize. Yes. Second, I want to be treated as a human being, despite the fact that I would be, let's say, in B2C or B2B. So basically, people want it to be the similar kind of experience as they would be buying from themselves. Thirdly, we want more consumer-like experiences. So basically, I will change the the vendor if this current one is a bit, let's say, non-flexible or doesn't fit the needs, because I want it to be easy and convenient. And fourthly, as said, I don't want to be just another number or a ticket. So these were the needs before COVID. Okay, well, what's the reality? And Salesforce did this. It was in 2020. Connected customer. They would like us as vendors to meet our personal needs and unique expectations, and they would also like us to demonstrate empathy, meaning that we as salespeople would be and really thinking of the customer's point of view. But the reality wasn't quite like it. So there was still, let's say, lack in empathy and also lack in this uniqueness. That's what the customers were saying. And then, of course, about the salespeople, on the left one, pretty basic stuff, right? So people were expecting the firm understanding of business. I didn't just want to spend my days in talking about, let's say, how's the weather like. If we're in a sales call or if we're going into a sales meeting, I really want to talk about my business and how can you help. Secondly, I want a solution. I don't want to pitch to be pitched by products. I don't want any product pitch. That's not what my typical day would be like. So I would invest time and have a product pitch. And thirdly, I would like to be advised by an expert. So I want to meet an expert, not a salesperson. And let's say that also in this part, the reality might not yet be quite there. And so you could summarize in a way that customers want and still want, despite the fact that, if you're after, before, or during the COVID, personalized insight and tailored value. Like, what is important to me in my business, in my situation? And as Salesforce cleverly, let's say, pointed out, there's no longer B2C or B2B, it's B2Me. I want to get the personalized experience. So what were they getting? Well, this let's say, personalized general product pitches according to the customers. But of course, with the twist that now on Zoom, and the similar kind of a bit too eager to just showcase your product instead of actually finding and digging deeper into what is the actual problem. And then what happened, I've been getting this a lot, is that yes, sales used to be so easy because you were able to have meetings with customers, but now this goddamn remote selling is so hard. Customers have changed and nothing is ever easy. You have to basically go into these Zooms and Teams meetings. So people are kind of complaining that sales used to be easy, but now since the virtual selling came to be, it now suddenly was really, really hard and almost impossible. Now, not of course everyone, but this typical generalization. And now this brings me to a question that's being asked, like, hey, Sani, is it possible to build trust if you only have to rely on these kind of virtual platforms and be fully online? And I would like to hear from you, Paulus, like, what do you really think? That's a good question. It's like, okay, yes, there is a difference in online and virtual meetings. You cannot get all the senses, but is it possible to build trust?
How I see, I have now experience of several years doing virtual sales. And my feeling is that if you will have good enough interaction in a meeting, so you have more than discussion, more than active listening and demonstrating your product, then you will build the trust on nearly on same level which you can do in face-to-face meetings. I don't see there anymore a big difference. When I started to do virtual sales, this was my biggest concern. Is it possible?
Yeah, Yeah, I have totally the same experience. I always remember it was 2015. I used to, let's say, have 10 meetings a week face to face with customers. Then I changed roles and I was started selling uh, purely online internationally. So I wasn't able to meet. There was rarely even cameras on. And then last, okay, I cannot, build trust. But then again, like, have you ever had a productive sales conversation via phone? That's a good thing to think before complaining about, hey, these virtual meetings are really hard. Have you ever had a meaningful conversation with a potential customer only via voice or only via
or with your husband or wife,
yeah, or
girlfriend,
yeah,
boyfriend,
yeah, or let's say using only text message or something like. Of course, the trust isn't about the tools and technology. So first of all, let's talk about trust for a second. What are the elements that build trust as a whole? And there was a great book called Trusted Leader that had these 8 C's of how trust is built. I won't go these through, but obviously, like if you think about it, uh, it's about how we interact with each other. If it's via phone, then of course there's people are looking for, let's say, tonality. Are you really present in this phone call? Do you actually listen? Do you have compassion? Are you clear with your message? And so forth. So, like, of course, building trust isn't dependent on the technologies or the platforms that we use. It's about the context that we're actually saying. So, I would hope that we would go from complaining that this is virtual or digital selling. It's selling, right? It's only selling. And sometimes we have the opportunity to meet face to face with full emotions and let's say the full experience with touch and smells and senses. But sometimes we have to, or it's even wise to rely on digital technology first. But it doesn't take over the fact that, of course, the same principles of how trust is built are there. So I would be hoping that we would stop like talking about like building trust in this or that environment, because it's always built the same kind of way. And we have to have the, let's say, valuable content and context in the sales discussion so that the trust can be built. That's let's say the end of my rant. But we had a great discussion about like what sales is really. Would you like to, let's say, swap the screen and showcase a couple of slides in your end, Paulus?
Yes, I can, and I will. Yes, this is always good question. What is sales all about? And it's very important to understand that when we are discussing how to sell. At first, we must understand what is sales, and how I see it can be seen from one perspective is that at first it's some kind of clarification of their needs, then offering a solution, and then the decision must be done to buy or not to buy. And then if you think about from buyer's perspective, it's something what they are thinking. They are thinking about value and the expense, how much it will cost to get that kind of extra value. And if we think about sales in big picture, I think it totally this way that there is a need, and the salesperson is offering a solution, and if the solution is good enough, so the value which he is offering is much bigger than those expenses, let's say 5 times bigger or 10 times bigger or something like that, then I believe that it's easy to make decisions. I think this is the very, very basics of sales. Give extra value for someone, and when the value is very cheap, which you are selling, then everything is okay and it's easy to make decisions and go on. This is how I see it. how about you, Sani?
Well, let's say that it's always good, like first to go into the core things, as I mentioned, like what is trust about? How is trust built? What is interaction about? What is sales about? So, like, if then the let's say the essential sales, the main idea of what are we trying to accomplish hasn't changed, the next question would be, okay, if then everything has changed, and has the buying process changed? So, okay, let's agree. Okay, building blocks of trust haven't changed. Maybe the essence of selling, the main purpose hasn't changed. Has the buying process changed then? Well, let's look at it, right? First of all, once again, pre-COVID first, the customers were spending more and more time independently looking for solutions, internal meetings. So only 17% of the time spent was spent with us vendors, the salespeople. So major part of the whole buying process was made independently and internally, also pre-COVID. Okay, so basically, if you compile the whole buying process, of course there are different variations, but this is the basic thing. Awareness of need, researching options, comparing those, committing that yes, we want to change this or do something, and then there would be the vendor options, meaning that this would be the place where we usually meet different kinds of vendors, and this most of the time in many businesses happened face to face. So we were meeting those vendors face to face. But if you think about it, now only this part has basically also went online. So the rest of the part of the buying process was mainly done already online and independently, internally, also pre-COVID. So the only basically change, I would say, and some cases there hasn't even been a change in this one, but the physical meeting went into an online meeting, because this process has to be always happening before any commitment or any action takes place. So no change in the buying process, I would argue. And then, of course, there was Gartner, right? So Gartner said, oh, this is the typical B2B buying process. And they basically said the similar kind of, let's say, 4 or 5 or 6 main elements. So identify the problem and solution, so forth. The problem, in essence, was that it's getting more and more complex for 2 reasons. Why? There are more people involved. So, it becomes more democratic, more opinions. Secondly, it's more independent and internal. So people are spending more time actually discussing internally than with the vendors and the solution providers. Then, of course, the question is like, so if the problem that basically the Gartner has been now for the last 5 years stating out, that especially in B2B selling, the problem is not how the salespeople sell, but how the buyers actually act. They're making the buying process has become a bit too complex. And the one thing missing is commitment. So customers are not committing that, yes, Paulus, I would like you and your company to help me to get my solutions. So what could be the possible answer to the commitment problem? Well, that's obviously the interaction part. So the active interaction during the entire buying journey. So this is the whole key here. So that's why this topic is not about digital sales tool. It's about interaction, and this is missing. Now, this is what is missing according to all the reports, and also I'm thinking and based on our own experiences. So you could say that sometimes everything is done technically correct. All these sales process parts and the buying process parts have been identified, and it's technically correct. But what is missing is the interaction in between. So the human touch, the human element. So yes, you had a great message. Yes, you had a 15-minute demo. You showed a great demo, but the interaction is missing. So the human touch, right? And
Yes,
that's the
and if you think about this human touch, there is, I think it's big part of the trust building. And Eetu is asking there,
Mhm.
how do you see the difference between trusting the person and trusting the expertise of the person? How about the balance between the two?
That's a very good question. Before answering, actually, I don't see. I don't know if you can see this picture here.
Not yet.
Let's see. So let me share the screen. Yeah, here. So I came across this picture now. Hopefully, this is from SlideShare. I just basically Googled it and went into SlideShare. So now, hopefully, you can see this. So when I started to be interesting about social selling, and I was thinking like, so what is the essence in social selling? Why this kind of new sales model came to be and arise? And the main idea would be that salespeople were lacking the interaction in between of sales process parts. And then I was also already speaking like this. So the picture is in Finnish, but I basically mentioned that the trust and the more meaningful relationships are built in between of these sales process parts. And these are the factors how and why social selling has now came to be, so that people would be focusing a bit more not only about the process but also about the people. Now let me answer the question here. So the difference is between buying from, first of all, the person, and then the products that the person is pitching. People always buy the people first. So first of all, you want to say, is Paulus any, is this person worth listening to? So you always first sell yourself, and then when I'm getting along, when I'm having the conversation, then I'm trying to figure out, is Seidat, that the company Paulus is representing, a good fit for us? So of course, there is a bit of a difference in let's say different industries or what you're actually buying, but generally this is the case. So you buy the person first, and then you start to think about, okay, because you want to have the, let's say, the connection open. Does this person understand what I need? Because you're now representing the company, right? That's the sales representative means. So you're representing the company, and your job is to, let's say, find the fit for your problem and our solution. That's why you always come a person first, and then you go from the products. Unless you're selling only fully digital products merely online, then of course it's more like product like growth and stuff like that. But mainly this is the case.
Yes, I agree totally. But when we are discussing our product-led growth, it's or strategies, I would say that there is also trust building between the buyer and the service provider, the company.
Yep.
And if you don't trust the company, even the product itself is perfect. You don't trust it.
Yeah, that's a very good point too, because like the common saying goes that people buy from people they know and trust. And you could also say people buy from companies they know, meaning that they're, you don't have to worry or fear like, okay, am I getting this brand? So what is happening to me if I choose this kind of vendor? Or, the is it trustworthy companion to us? So yes, so we're talking about once again what? The trust. Is it like, if I'm making a choice, is this safe for me? Or am I going to look like a fool when choosing this random company with no references, no one ever heard about? Of course, it's about trust. Can you sell a product or a company that has zero credibility or zero brand? Of course, but then your own credibility and your own, let's say, interaction, of course, the demand rises. But then, of course, let's jump from, let's say, the sales philosophy into the meeting part. So first of all, let's agree that yes, it's not enough to only be present in the meetings. You have to be present earlier. You have to have the interaction pre and post meetings as well. That's hopefully now clear. But then again, this is the, let's say, the moment of truth. So before jumping in the pre and post things, let's first think about this fact. So, since people are not buying or not making changes, that's what I'm also getting from people. So like, yeah, but now customers are not doing anything. Like they're getting afraid that the COVID is ruining this year and they're not committing to change. Okay, but do they have the same problems? Do they still have some problems despite the pandemic? Are there still the problems? And of course, the answer is that yes. And you have to understand, like, as you mentioned cleverly, like salespeople and sales companies still want to provide solutions to customers' problems. They want to have improvement ideas. They want to give new ways to win. And customers are more than happy to get these kind of possibilities. Hey, please help me win. So the question obviously remains, how do we encounter with the customers so that these two, the customer needs and our solutions match? And this can be physical or online. Okay, but
that decision will be made.
yeah. Or then so it's like you have to remember that the decision is also no decision. That's also a decision, and that's mainly for many customers that they're now deciding. Not now, not here. Is that a good decision? For many, not. That's why we have to be able to actually prove why we should, or you, dear customer, should probably invest your time and energy in making this decision so that you would win more. The customers, what did they point out? They said, yes, we still have the same problems. Make it possible for me to buy. Don't forget me, even though we cannot meet face to face. Keep me informed if there are new solutions options. So I kind of, when I looked at this study, there was the same study from Salesforce. I was looking at this like, they're basically yelling, help us, help us. We still have the same freaking problems, and we're looking for solution providers and salespeople like you to help us in our problems. Okay, of course, I'm exaggerating here because there are many companies that went into this fully digital sales model and started helping, like many of you here. And when asked from customers, like, how do you enjoy now, since you're either fully remote or you're in hybrid or you're serving yourself digitally, how do you like it? I love it, says the customer. And this is from McKinsey. So 70 to 80% of decision makers prefer remote human interactions or digital self-service. And they weren't saying that it's a bad thing that you now meet them via Teams or Zoom or only interact digitally. Why? Mainly three reasons. First of all, it's easier. I don't have to book the meeting room and maybe go into the office and meet and so forth. Secondly, it saves time and even money in travel expenses. I would say that it's more convenient. And of course, let's not forget the fact that we are in the midst of global pandemic. So it's a bit more safe.
And I would add also that environmental perspective.
Yeah, so that's a good
traveling around the globe or Finland or Europe is it's not only consuming time, but it's also environment question today.
Yeah. Sometimes it feels a bit odd because I was thinking like 2019, as it were, like I don't know, ancient history. But I was basically flying in Europe for a 1.5 hours keynote, and it took me 3 days. So if you think about the whole process of getting into a specific place, so there are many benefits here. But anyways, now when finally we're in an encounter with customer, so it's like when we're interacting with customers, and hopefully this kind of let's say attitude at least, so that you you won't be yawning when going into a meeting, but you actually want to prove something. You want to create the value. You want to be present. I'm really hoping that despite the fact that we're here digitally now, that you would sense that I actually want to be here. I actually care about, to be here. So, a couple of things. First of all, what is happening before the actual meeting, if you could say, online meeting or official meeting? First of all, 2022, most likely, the first impression is done in digital environments. So the first impression is almost always now digital. I've been noticing that, obviously. It's a bit naive to think that, hey, customer just happened to answer the phone and agreed on a meeting and didn't do any research whatsoever prior. In many cases, that is not the case. If, let's say, that you want to agree on a meeting. So the very first impressions most likely are going to happen digitally. And that basically means for every single one of us that first we have to be able to create the credible profiles so that we would stand out as expert instead of just sales rep number 42. Second, as said, we have to also have interaction on these digital platforms. It can mean that we have a small little chat via text message or LinkedIn or whatever pre-meeting. Why? So that they would be committed, right? So that, hey, I'm investing my time. I'm looking forward on our meeting on 3 p.m. today. And of course, showcasing a little bit, hey, what are we going to talk about? Is it going to be another product demo or something else? So a pre-planned agenda or even some material.
What kind of value you are bringing to the customer? I think it's very important to raise up that way the value of the meeting, that I will bring something extra for you. And
yeah,
I recommend use that kind of information pre-meeting stage.
Yeah. So what is going to happen? I'm also, as said, the one of the C's. I'm committed into this meeting. In my end, as a sales representative, I'm obviously hoping that you would be too. And here's what I've been cooking for you. So let's, serve the dinner at 3 p.m. But here's what I'm about to cook. Something that people know what to expect. And dramatically, when there is an agenda, when you have some pre-planned, people are not skipping the meetings because they said, hey, okay, that person really made an effort, so I want to also join in. But then, just before a meeting, I would hope, and it doesn't matter if it's online or physical, because if we're talking about interactions. So now maybe moving into the actual beef of the webinar here. What is something that is recent from customer's life or let's say customer company's situation? So I would know immediately when starting the meeting, I would be having something fresh and relevant to be presenting to you so that you would know that, hey, that person has really prepared, wants to be in the meeting, and I have something. So something recent and fresh. Second, couple of really good questions that showcases and makes the customer think. And thirdly, understand that even though you're excited, you would have this balance between structure and let's say chaos or presence, so that whatever happens, I'm present here, and there's always room for listening and reacting to the situations. So I think that these kind of 3 steps, if done just before the meeting, would set your mood that, hey, I'm actually, someone said quite nicely that I'm now checking in to this meeting. So okay, now I'm really zoning into the meeting and thinking those kind of things just before the meeting, so that you would not just okay, and then just joined in and then you automatically press play. And of course, maybe then, of course, the most important part is during the meeting. So as said, and this is just an overview, you can have let's say your own model. But I just thought, like, what could be the kind of structure in a meeting that would have enough of those elements that help you as a salesperson to form a credible structure. But then again, we would be having sufficient amount of these personal connections, that I'm actually listening and being present and so forth. This is something that it could look like. So of course, the structure part, meaning that what am I wanting to get out of this? So like, I want to close the agenda. That's the close number one. Would it be okay if we would go through this and this, and in the end we would be discussing about like if there's any room for collaboration. The second close would be obviously like, based on what you actually mentioned, here would be one solution. Would you want to go this through together? And third one would be closing the next steps. That is not enough. Why? Because that is not interesting to the customer. And that's usually, or not usually, but sometimes missing. So like, what do you want, Paulus? What do you really want from the meeting? And this is where the connection part comes in place. And I would be hoping that we would actually focus on the genuine building of the moment that is interesting to the customer. And one part is active listening. So it's like, if I'm in a discovery, meaning that I really now want to find out, based on the research I've done previously, that what is the life actually looking like in the customer's end? What are you really expecting? What are your true needs? And this is where the genuine interaction comes to play. And active listening is obviously one tool, meaning that you would be doing in many ways, meaning that you would also use your nonverbal communication skills that, hey, okay, I'm showing that, yes, I am hearing what you're saying, I'm listening, but also pointing out, hey, Paulus, you mentioned that, and then obviously recapping or rephrasing what you mentioned. Or if you mentioned that this is something that is important to us, you are, let's say, sticking in that kind of topics. And then, of course, now you're tapping into those kind of places that the customer is underlining that this is important to us. And maybe, let's say, the last part is that you would not be doing this also on a technical level and not only copy pasting what the customer says. So you're saying that it's really important, but you actually rephrase it. So that, did I understand correctly what you're saying?
Yes, and I would say that this is one of the most strange parts which I have seen and experienced when junior sales reps are contacting me and we have a meeting. They are like robots asking those questions, and I hate that.
Yeah, I agree that this is one of those trickiest parts. So if now I think that many of the professionals here, we understand that the emotional content of sales is really important. So like, how can you tap into those kind of things that are really important to the customer and showcase that you care? And therefore, it's really important to understand that, first of all, we shouldn't be like parrots repeating, you said that, but you would tap in to those things that are specifically important to you. And this, the number one spot, is what differentiates the top performing salespeople from the rest, because that takes skill. That takes skills. Like, customer said a lot, but what is from that, everything that the customer said is the most important part. Obviously, you have a nice little tool called questions. So like, what would you say that everything that you mentioned would be your top priority this year? So of course you can ask that, but mainly, tie in and spend time on the questions that the customer pointed out. And of course, secondly, with tying this into what you actually can solve. So you're not talking about, yeah, that sounds nice, we don't have anything to do with that, so it's like, of course, listening and tapping into those things that we can actually solve. So if you wanted to make a list, I'm not going to read it out loud, but since you're getting to material, you can check in. So like, first of all, how am I going to showcase that I'm actually present? Secondly, how and what will I reference to the customer that I will show that, hey, I'm actually hearing what you say and I want to help you to solve that problem. Am I understanding this correctly with your own phrasing and so forth? But then you had a nice bullet, Paulus, about the co-creation part. So let's try to clarify this a bit. And I wrote this kind of page down, but you can start perhaps.
Yeah, I think that when we are actively listening and we are interacting in a meetings, I would say that this interaction is or discussion, active discussion, active listening. I would say that it's not enough. It's important that we create something together. I would say that this we should change our perspective from discussion to creating something. So towards co-creation, for example. I would say what is the best word for that, but I would say co-creation is maybe something what should happen in a sales meeting. My background is actually in design. I'm industrial designer from my professional background, and when we are designing things, creativity is very important. But I have been more than 20 years in all kind of creative companies, and I must say the most creative people should be salespeople.
Yeah, that's a very good point. So like when discussing with you, I was just like, yeah, this kind of explains what I meant by that. Everything is technically correct, but it doesn't match. And why doesn't the commitment happen is that the co-creation basically is missing. So I tried to elaborate with this kind of picture. So the customers comes in to a meeting. He or she has their own agenda and they wanted their problem to be solved, and they want to go for that solution so that the pain would go away or so forth. And you as a salesperson, you have your own goals, right? I want to get you to buy our solution so that we would start a lovely little journey. So sometimes happens so that we cannot speak and we don't connect. So what happens is that the real value lies in that kind of situation. So hopefully, let's say that how can I tell that you're committed into this webinar? Well, if someone has a question and we are taking that question in, we didn't plan it, and hopefully I did try to at least answer to that question, we're actually creating this webinar together. So the reality of sales life looks like this. So it's a beautiful little mess, right? So hopefully not the whole total mess, but like you have a goal, but you understand that most likely that the first idea how to solve the customer's problem isn't the only thing that is going to say, so that he or she would say, yes, let's do everything that you said. No, usually that takes yes, but, and then you're actually co-creating the best possible solution. And that takes, the active listening is a gateway to the co-creation, so that we would then create the kind of optimal solution based on our own interaction. And I've never witnessed, let's say, a complex process that went from the first pre-planned way from A to Z. Usually what happens is that it changes and goes in all ways. But hopefully then you're both committed in solving the problem. And I want to say that even though now we're doing this like customer and salesperson, of course, the modern days customers, the buyers, they understand that we're here to help. The vendors are our friends, they're our partners, and we have to work together, not opposing each other, right? So that's why we have to do the co-creation. And I would hope that there would be a little bit of, let's say, approaching the hands that, could you help me, instead of like, okay, show me what you got. So we would both have this kind of connection. So the main point is this, not going this fully through. Customer has their buying process. Salespeople have their sales process. The co-creation part ties this in. The beautiful little mess is what ties your goals into the customer's goals. And at the end, hopefully, the customer is reaching their goals with your help. And you would say that, hey, we are actually a good fit to help that customer. So without this co-creation, what can happen is both talk, both like go in their own processes, but they're not really committed.
Yes, and you have in this image, it was a little bit like a train in that image, and I would say that typically we are discussing about sales like a process which goes like a train, certain track, which is before the sales has been started, it is defined what kind of track you have to reach your goal, but it's not happening that way. That image with this line going around and everywhere, I think it's more like the reality in sales. It's active searching and trying to find new ideas, and then there comes a solution.
One funny, let's say, acid test to this kind of situation is that, let's say you're really busy as a customer or a potential buyer. Someone is calling you or reaching out to you, and then they're politely asking you a question like, hey, Sani, what about your company? Is your company planning to, let's say, save cuts this year? And you instantly said, no, we're actually spending, we don't care that at all. You will say friendly, but basically like stopping the script. Like, no, I don't. You know, these kind of, sometimes I get these face-to-face people that are selling all kinds of products, and they ask like, Sani, do you care about human rights or children's rights? I was thinking like, what if I answer no? What is going to happen? Not because I wouldn't care about those, but I would like to see what happens next. Because that's the actual, the conversation actually starts when we both start playing like this. Hello, nice to meet you. Likewise, well, we actually start having this real conversation. But hey, interaction after the meeting, not going fully in. I would say that if you want to stand out, and not to, because now we're in a digital world, we don't have the same kind of how would you say, the same kind of emotions that people would commit, and you only have this online place, so you have to interact a bit more before and after. And if you want to make a world-class follow-up, make it personalized. So speak about your topics that you, Paulus, mentioned. Make it multi-touch. Don't rely only on emails. Act that, hey, I actually send you this email, so that you're tying the customer in multiple ways. Thirdly, make all the things with a little sprinkle on top what you discussed, not only what is being expected. Why? Because let's look at it like this. If you're going into a restaurant and you're expected to get a nice little meal and you're getting it, was that a 5-star experience? Most likely not. It's what you expected. So what we want to do is we want to provide a little bit more that is being expected. So something extra. And of course, once again today, everything this would be easy, but then people will happen. So let's perhaps chat about different people. And because sometimes the reality in sales is that you can pre-plan as much as you like. You can have all your wonderful things in place. Like Michael Tyson said, that I describe sales in nice ways. Like Everybody has a plan until you get punched in the face. That's sales in essence. That's basically that you had a plan that, hey, okay, the customer probably has this and that pain point, and he or she is this and that looking person, and then they appear to the meetings and they're totally different. So like, how can we take into this account? And I would just make it like this. Hopefully this tool helps you as much as it helps me. Some of you might recognize a tool for simple as this. This is a quick way to do it. So like, let's say that you're going into a meeting and now you want to interact and have the real kind of the same kind of level and the real connection. Of course, if you as a decision maker would be more interested in facts and you would be, can we get this out of the way, so that you would be really low tempo and interested on the facts, and then sprinkling Sani comes in like, hi, fantastic, there's a mismatch between the communication. So this tool basically helps that usually people act in 4 different ways. They have a high tempo or a low tempo. That's the first thing. You can immediately see that. For instance, with me and you, Paulus, I have a high tempo, you have a little bit of lower tempo.
Yeah.
Then usually some people are more into facts. They want to say, okay, what is that based on? Sani, can you show the study, what you mentioned? And some people are like, yes, it's just like that. That's how I feel too. So some people are more into feelings and more into facts. Now you have the tool in place. Paulus, what do you think I would be like as a salesperson if you would have to describe some part of this?
I would put you to high tempo and high feelings, somewhere there.
Yeah,
somewhere there. Not exactly, but
yeah, but
near.
it doesn't matter, because what you're not trying to analyze my persona with in detail. But now you would probably understand that if the person now happens to be like this, maybe I shouldn't only be talking facts and bullets, right? So it makes it easy for you to, let's say, make the communication a bit more customer-like. And this is where you could actually jump in, because like, let's say that, hey, okay, so I have a plan, I'm going into a meeting, notice that, hey, I don't want to go like a train into this kind of direction because the customer wants to go into that direction, but I already made my materials. So isn't that something that Seidat basically can do?
Exactly.
Because like, to be honest, like sometimes I was wondering, like, why do I like Seidat? I don't like Seidat because it's a better way to present the tools, but then basically I discovered that that is making it possible for me to adapt into the situation at hand a bit better.
Yeah.
Right? So like, let's
Thank
say,
you for the introduction.
yeah,
Because
that's my own plan.
Yeah, Seidat is a sales platform, and if I present it shortly, it's a platform for where you can create your sales materials, presentations. You can use it for presenting, sharing, and so on, and analyzing. But what if you think about from interaction point of view? I think one of the most interesting parts of that is the structure, how we have structured those presentations. So it's not like a linear structure, but we have a matrix. So here you can have like an elevator pitch level, and then you can go deeper. So, and this is a presenter view, which I'm, for example, using all the time. For example, now I can jump from one slide to another one. So in different kind of meetings, I behave and present totally differently. And it makes it possible to have that interaction in a meeting. It makes it possible to have this co-creational part.
Yeah.
And I think it's amazing. But I would say also that it's very important that this is a tool which can be used not only in the meetings, but it can be used also before meetings to send, for example, share introductions, or after the meeting, creating those memos and sharing them, creating proposals, and even when this is part of the whole sales ecosystem, you can automate those processes. You can get analytics data from every part of that. You can use that data for remarketing campaigns. So when Sani is opening my sales deck, I can then direct remarketing campaign in LinkedIn. And I think that kind of features will give us more, it will give us more opportunities to collaborate between sales and marketing, because one of the most important sales tools is also marketing tool.
Well, yeah. How can I say? That's why basically now companies are really focusing on sales enablement. Like, hey, do we actually present things in the way that we as company would be like to present it? But hey, I think that we could have a couple of more minutes with the questions. So to basically summarize, hopefully, I will leave it. I will leave the summary part here. If there is no continuous interactions, most likely there's not going to be a commitment. Customers are not committing into having a discussion. So basically, you can see this many times in this way. You haven't interacted properly with the customers, and then you try to email customers and they don't get back to you. And you're basically like hoo-hooing in the emails, like, hey, did you get my thing? So there's no commitment. Customers are not committing. Secondly, people with emotions want people with emotions, meaning they don't want to hear your product pitch. They can see it online. So please go into context. What is my case? So go into context. I want to see what Paulus has cooked for me specifically. Thirdly, don't go technology first. So like, don't go ahead, sorry, Paulus, and buy Seidat before you have actually made the plan where Seidat going to help you interact better. Then you can go ahead and buy Seidat, right? So
yes,
otherwise,
exactly.
Because people are doing that all the time. Hey, Sani, what do you think about Sales Navigator on LinkedIn? It's like, what do you want to hear my overall opinion? Where are you going to use it for something? So what are you going to use it for? And then it can help you, not the other way around. But hey, any questions or comments?
There was one question which I think we haven't answered. It was from Juho. I think this is a little bit complex, this question. If the needs are still there, as COVID merely made many customers more sensitive, fearful to change, have their priorities reshuffled and new needs emerged?
Very good questions. Very good question. Oh, damn, that was really good question. Because like, yes,
and complex.
Well, the problems are still there, and the customers reprioritize the problems. That's why people are not making as much certain decisions. So it's like, first of all, sometimes let's say that you notice that you don't. I can't sell this product to the specific customer. So don't try to sell the unsellable. People are not buying, let's say, event tickets in March now. People are not doing it. So they reprioritize certain things. But this brings us into a very, very critical things. How can you spot the priorities? How do you know what is now in customers' 1 or 2 or 3 priorities? Well, you never know it in advance unless you have some real, secret insight. That's, you have to find out in the discovery part. You have to go deeper into the meeting and into the needs. It's like, you can basically ask, like, hey, now since COVID is running wild still, what are your top priorities? Or even that question, has your priorities changed in the midst of this COVID? And let them explain how they have changed the priorities. Very good.
And we have been discussing about trust. If you don't have trust, you can't get that information. Trust is all about, it's in sales, it's everything.
Well,
Like
yeah,
interaction.
yeah, yeah. Of course, trust. Trust is an end result of a good interaction between human beings. That trust is always what happens. It's the goal between after a good attack, so to say. And as you have mentioned, people will not show their true emotions and feelings. And I would actually also underline, people might still not be showing their real emotions and their real situation, because if you're a professional buyer, you understand that it's my role to keep calm a bit, in a sense. But by asking the right kind of questions, you can actually have those kind of real priorities and needs in place.
Yes. It's time, and I will thank you, everyone. We have been discussing about winning. Sales is about interaction, and I would like to add in the end of this meeting, co-creation is the key to success.
Amen, brother.
Thank
Hey,
you,
thanks,
everyone.
And let's continue on social, and I can drop you materials afterwards, so you can actually dive back in.
Yes, and we will share this recording to everyone, also this content what we have been using. So please read our emails. See you. Please have a contact in LinkedIn and everywhere, and have good meetings and discussions later. See you, and thank you a lot.
Thank you. Have a great fall, spring, winter, whatever it is.
Winter time. I feel it's winter.
Yeah, it is winter. Yeah.
And I hope that it will continue.
Yeah. So you can actually have your, lovely bike rides in the midst of this blizzard. Yeah.